Hey scholars, this is a video to explain the factual argument assignment for HCOM 235, Essentials of Argumentation. So I recommend that you have that document out in front of you, the one that says factual argument, HCOM 235, and it says advancing a basic factual argument. So this one has it's one of the first opportunities for you to be writing. It's a writing assignment where you're going to be writing about a factual argument, a factual claim. It's worth 100 points, and basically what you're going to do is you're going to create a simple argument. So now you're taking all of the things that you learned, or not all of the things, but you're taking a number of the things that you've learned in this course from all the chapters and the PowerPoint videos of me lecturing and the PowerPoint presentations. And you're taking a number of those things, and now you're putting them together in a nice package called a simple argument. So it's kind of like the cooking metaphor. Like we've been talking about different cooking methods and ingredients and tools, and now I'm saying, now make this, right? I'm giving you a recipe and you need to make something. That's one way to think about it. So I'll just kind of read through this. You're going to choose one of the claims. There's 10 claims to choose from, and you're going to choose one, and you're going to essentially you are going to affirm. You're going to either agree with the claim or disagree with the claim. It's up to you whether or not you want to create an argument that affirms that claim or negates that claim. It doesn't really matter to me, because the point is that you're finding evidence that's supporting whichever position that you take, and I'll be explaining this in detail. So you need to find evidence. You need to find two pieces of evidence from two different sources. And it needs to be relevant and appropriate for the claim that you're advancing. There needs to be a logical relationship between the claim and the evidence you present to affirm or negate the claim. So you have to have a warrant, right? Think about Toulmin's model, where you have claim, grounds, warrant. You're making a claim, you have to provide the grounds, which is the evidence, and then the warrant is there's a logical relationship. And if you don't understand that yet, then I would recommend that you review the textbook sections that talk about that, and of course where I've talked about that in detail with the PowerPoint presentations. So I'll say this now, and I'll kind of remind you throughout this video. You need to include, you must include a copy of the evidence that you use in your written summary, and highlight that information to which you make reference. In other words, so whatever claim you have, you're going to have at least two sources. Let's say a newspaper article, and then some sort of maybe a book chapter or a website or something like that. For each source, you need to include that source in your final submission, in your final paper, basically. So you'll have your factual argument, which will be a few pages long, 2, maybe 3 pages long, and then you have a copy of the evidence. So you can just, if it's an article that's, let's say, like 2 or 3 pages, 5 pages, include the entire thing. So you might turn in a document that's 10 pages long. Doesn't really matter to me. But the point is, you have to include the evidence. I mean, yeah, you have to include the source, the place where you got the information. So I mentioned if it comes from a lengthy book or article, let's say you had like a 30-page article or a whole book. Well, you don't need to include that entire thing in your assignment, but just the first or second page of that article, where it shows the author's information, publisher, copyright, title, all that kind of stuff. So I know where you're getting the information from. And then of course you'd include the section where you pulled the evidence from. So that might be just 1 page or a couple pages. So you need to include that. If you don't include that, it will impact your grade negatively. So let's go over the claims. You're going to choose one of these following claims. Like I said, it doesn't matter to me which one you choose. I recommend choosing one that really stands out to you. Read through all of them, think about them, and basically determine whether or not you want to focus your time on this assignment. So, like I said, you can either affirm or negate the claim as it stands. So the first one says, aliens do not exist. A lot of people do not believe that aliens exist. And so let's say you choose that one. Well, you need to find evidence to support that claim. You need to find evidence that supports the claim that they do not exist. Maybe you choose the opposite and you say aliens do exist. And I've had a few students do this one, and they find evidence to support that claim. you don't have to prove that it's true. The idea of this assignment is not to prove that these things are true or false, but it's to find appropriate, relevant, logical evidence to support whichever position you're taking. That's the assignment. It's not to prove. You're not trying to prove anything. You're trying to find evidence that logically supports it, and that might be confusing. You might be like, "Wait a minute, doesn't it prove it?" Well, not necessarily. If I were to say develop a 200-page book to prove it, well, then that might be a little more challenging, right? But even still, it's hard to prove anything. The idea in scientific research, or the idea in argumentation, is that you don't really try to prove a point. You try to support a point. I have an opinion, or I've taken a certain position on this issue, and let me show you how I can support my position using evidence. It's not just my opinion. It's my informed opinion based upon evidence that I've found. So it's not that I'm trying to prove it. It's like I'm trying to support it. So that's one. Number two, vaping causes lung-related diseases. So if that's the one you choose, you might say, yes, I believe vaping causes lung-related diseases. You need to find evidence that specifically supports that. Or you say, no, you don't think it does. Well, then you need to find evidence that supports the fact that it doesn't cause lung-related diseases. Number three, mandatory school uniforms reduce student behavioral problems for grades K through 8 in the U.S. Very specific, right? So you'd want to find very specific evidence for school uniforms in that grade category, K through 8, but specific to the U.S. So this is just dealing with the United States, one country. So in other words, some schools make uniforms mandatory because they believe it will reduce things like bullying, or a variety of problems, name calling, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And let's say you think like, yeah, no, that makes sense to me. Well, then find evidence to support that. Or maybe you think, no, I don't think it does. I don't think uniforms do reduce behavioral problems. Well, then you need to find evidence to support that. The number four, the agriculture industry is a leading cause of deforestation in the United States. Very important, the article A, right? It's not the article the. The article the would be a lot different. The agriculture industry is a leading cause of deforestation in the United States. The idea is not to find evidence to support that it's the leading cause, like the most significant cause of deforestation, rather that it's just a leading cause. This is a very hotly debated topic. There's a documentary, if you're interested in this topic outside of this assignment, there's a documentary called Cowspiracy, C-O-W, like the animal. Cowspiracy, and it talks about the issue of deforestation and how it's a significant cause of, how agriculture is a significant cause of deforestation. Regardless of how you feel about it, if you choose this one, you're either for it or against it, right? Either you believe that it is a leading cause or it's not. You need to find evidence to support either position. Number five, females occupy fewer managerial positions than men in the U.S. So if you say, yes, I'm gonna support that claim, the idea is not, you'd want to find evidence that shows that somehow you'd want to find strong evidence that shows that across the board, females have far fewer managerial positions than men. Managerial, I'm not talking about upper level, executive level positions in Fortune 500 companies, just to be clear, because that's the evidence is clear for that. I mean, if you look at the Fortune 500 or Fortune 100 companies, you look at the top companies in the world. When you look at the executive members in terms of like CEO and presidents and whatnot, by and large, there are far more men than women. And that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about more generally speaking, more broadly speaking, manager positions, right? That includes all industries, not just top levels executives in Fortune 500 companies. Maybe you think they don't. Maybe you think it's somewhat equal. Point is, you have to find evidence to support either one. Number six, children who play violent video games are more likely to use violence to resolve conflict. Maybe you think, no, I don't think they do. Well, find evidence to support either one. So you get the idea now. Number seven, distracted driving is a leading cause of automobile accidents in the U.S. Support or negate. beauty pageants in the U.S. cause damage to self-identity for children. I've had a lot of people choose this one over the years, and there seems to be a lot of evidence for this, that beauty pageants do cause damage to self-identity for children. So I'll be very specific here. We're talking about like beauty pageants where children are the contestants, right? And children, let's say younger than, I don't know, younger than 10, but I don't know that much about the beauty pageant industry. But we're not looking at beauty pageants for grown-ups, for lack of a better term. And so this can be somewhat broad in the sense of it can cause damage to identity for children who are the contestants, and also children who are viewing this, right? So the children who are watching these shows from home, or maybe they're even visiting them, the claim can go both ways. The claim can extend beyond the actual stage. The claim can extend to the viewers of it. So I would say, if that's the one you choose, figure out which direction you want to take. You could find one piece of evidence that shows how it does damage to the identity of the children who are the contestants, and then one piece of evidence that shows how it does damage to the children who are just watching this. The point is, you got to find the evidence to support it. Number 9, increasing the minimum wage in the U.S. will reduce poverty. So I've had a lot of students do this one, and it's half and half. So I've seen these arguments where they agree with this one or they disagree with it. They confirm it, they affirm it, or they negate it. And then the last one, recycling facilities cause pollution to our environment, or they don't cause pollution to our environment, right? So you can affirm or negate each one. So that step 1, choose the claim. Step 2, choose either agree or disagree, affirm or negate. Step 3, I'm sorry, that was step 2. Step 3 is finding 2 pieces of evidence to support your claim. Has to be warranted. There has to be a logical relationship between the 2 things. Needs to come from a source that's been published either in a book, a periodical, newspaper, credible government document, etc. I will, and just later in this video, I'm gonna kind of walk you through how you might do some research online on the university's library databases. Step 4 is to cut the evidence. So there's no specific number of sentences I'm looking for, but you don't want to just like highlight an entire page and then put that into the assignment. You want to look very, very carefully through the source to find the sentence that best supports the claim. So you want to comb through the source to find like the most compelling section. Perhaps you're reading an article that's 3 pages long, and then throughout the article, there's various sections that seem to support your claim. Well, which section best supports your claim? Because you're just choosing one section. So just one continuous section. You're not just highlighting, you're not just cherry picking various sentences throughout the article. You're finding one particular section where there's, for example, like a narrative where the author is presenting a detailed overview of some sort of like evidence, a detailed explanation of evidence that would support your claim, whichever position you take on the claim. So in other words, when I'm grading this, I'm only looking at your evidence. So if I see the evidence that you pulled and it doesn't really support your claim, it doesn't really mention anything. So if it's let's say increasing the number 9 on minimum wage and poverty, maybe you found an article that provides a great explanation of how the minimum wage does or doesn't reduce poverty. But if you just copy and paste, if you happen to copy and paste a section of that and there's nothing in that section that really talks about poverty or minimum wage, then it's going to have a significant impact on your grade. In other words, there's no like you're not providing any evidence, because I'm not going to read the article. I'm only reading what you're pulling. Sorry, my computer keeps popping things up. So spend time really carefully combing through, reading carefully through each piece of evidence that you're using, and then figure out like what's the most compelling section of what's the most compelling area of evidence, and that's what you copy and paste. A couple sentences, a few sentences long, 2-3 sentences, maybe a very short paragraph, but not long excessive paragraphs. And if it's like one sentence, it's probably not enough. So maybe you're looking through your source and you're like, I can't really find anything. Well, then get a different source, right? So as you're doing the research process, as you're getting your sources, you're only required 2. I recommend getting 3 or 4 or 5 when you're in the research process. And then obviously you don't need to use that many, but you'll just use 2, but just find the 2 that are the most compelling. Yeah, so that's what you're doing. You're cutting the evidence, literally copying and pasting that into the assignment. You're not explaining the evidence, so you're taking it word for word. So 4 and 5 are kind of redundant. Steps 4 and step 5 are kind of redundant. You're not explaining the evidence. You know, your job is not to explain the evidence. Your job is to find evidence that supports your claim. So that, in some ways, this is like a really easy part of the assignment because you're just trying to find good information, and you're not really writing a whole lot. You're just copying and pasting. The other section is what's going to require a lot more work, right? A lot more writing where your voice is being heard. So that's where you're going to use the CRAP test to assess the evidence. That document's available on our Canvas page. It's on the same module as this assignment. So for each source of evidence, for each source that you're using, you're going to apply the CRAP test, where you answer all 4 questions dealing with currency, reliability, authority, and purpose for each source. I'll explain that in just a second. So on that second page of this document, there's a model to illustrate just the structure. So your papers are going to look a lot different than this. They're going to be a lot longer, more detailed, more thorough. But just the structure, right? Where you write the claim, you include the source or the evidence, not the source, but you include the evidence word for word. And then under that, you have the source, right? Amy Harder, EPA accuses Volkswagen, yada, yada, yada. Sorry, I just confused you there. You have the claim, and then the source of the claim, which is, in this case, Amy Harder. The title of the article is EPA accuses Volkswagen, from the source, Wall Street Journal, and this is the publication date. And then word for word, in quotation marks, the evidence. This is one sentence, but in this sentence, it happens to be very detailed, and it's exactly what I'm looking for. It supports this claim that Volkswagen circumvented air pollution standards, right? The evidence supports that. And then below that, you'll apply the CRAP test, where you have, is the information recent enough? Where does it come from? Who authored the information? What was the intent of the author? And so on and so forth. And then you'll do that again for your second source. Same claim, right? Volkswagen circumvented air pollution standards. And now you have a second source. The source information, right? Jack Ewing, Volkswagen says, the title. New York Times is the source, the publication date, and then this evidence, a little bit longer, right? 2 or 3 sentences, 2 sentences. The evidence, and then again, another CRAP test. And then at the very bottom, you say, therefore, so you're presenting a simple argument. Here's a claim, here's my evidence to support the claim from these people, and here's my explanation for why these people are worthy of being trusted. Here's why they're credible, yada, yada, yada. The very last thing you write, therefore, it is evident that Volkswagen circumvented air pollution standards. So this assignment is helping you to understand the nature of building an argument, right? Like the cooking. Like, I took these ingredients and these pots and pans and these utensils and these sauces and using different temperature and cooking and yada, yada, yada. Therefore, here's your lasagna, right? I mean, it's not a perfect analogy, but hopefully you get the idea. So that's the assignment. So let's look at the CRAP test. So the CRAP test is on this module, where it says evaluating research sources, CRAP test. So you have 4 things: currency, reliability, authority, purpose. Currency, is the information recent enough for your topic? Well, considering your topic, if it's something like vaping, if it's vaping causing lung-related diseases, if you find something from 3 years ago, that's not current enough. So for something like vaping, or something where it's an industry or topic that's always changing, then the currency matters, right? So you basically just want to speak to that. Write a sentence or 2 about the currency of that information. I want to hear your voice. Like, if you think this is current enough or not current enough, or the currency doesn't matter, let me hear your voice. And the second one is reliability. So where does the information come from? Does the information apply to your topic? So this is the source itself. In other words, let's say it's a newspaper. It's the source, the source being the New York Times, the LA Times, the Orange County Register, the Chicago Tribune, et cetera, et cetera. If there's a particular newspaper outlet that you really like, maybe it's from your hometown, you want to find some information from a newspaper that you really like, that's fine too. But I would recommend choosing ones like Washington Post. Like, choose ones that are really well known, that have a very wide circulation. So that's the source, right? You need to speak to the reliability of that source. Or if it's a website, how is that website reliable? How do we know that website's reliable? How do I can trust the information that comes from that website? or if it's a magazine, or if it's a peer-reviewed scholarly journal, that's the gold standard, right? The authors talk about that. I talk about that in the section on evidence from chapter 6, how peer-reviewed scholarly journals, that's the gold standard in evidence because it goes through such a rigorous process. And how is like the information in the source, how is it relevant to what you're talking about? And then the authority is the person or group of persons who wrote the information. So you have, let's say we're looking at the example that I provided with, that's on the actual document where it says Amy Harder, EPA accuses Volkswagen. That's in the Wall Street Journal. Well, on that article, I looked when I've done this before. I looked up that article. Sometimes on a newspaper article, an online article, when you see the author on there, so I saw Amy Harder, and then I clicked on Amy Harder on her. Her name had a hyperlink. There was a link under her name, and then I found all this information about Amy Harder. She obviously writes for the Wall Street Journal, and then I found out like she covers these topics, and she's been covering these topics on things that have to do with the environment for the last several years. You might, whether it's this person, right, or any other writer for a newspaper, you should be able to find information like where they went to school, if they won awards, and if they're like if they have a good reputation in the community or whatever, right? The point is you need to find information about the person who wrote the information. Was it a corporation? Was it an agency? What are their credentials? Like, what's their expertise? Basically, the question is, how do I know I can trust this information? Perhaps the Orange County Register is reliable, or the LA Times is reliable, or some government website, the CDC, is reliable, but the actual person or group that produced the information, how can I trust them, right? So you want to speak to that, right? So for each thing, you're going to have like a paragraph. Some like usually the currency one, that's you might write that in 1 or 2 sentences, and then for reliability and authority, those are going to be more detailed, where you're speaking to the source, the reliability of the source, and then of course the authority. So like the credibility of the person, reliability, credibility of the person who authored the information. And the last one is kind of like straightforward, sort of like the obvious one. What's the point? What was the intent of the author? How is the author connected to the information? You don't have to answer every single one of these questions in the CRAP test where it says, are methods or preferences provided? Was it peer reviewed? Is all the information applied? I'm just giving you a list of questions to get you thinking about how you're going to write about this. So what I'm looking for is for each one, you're writing a brief response to each one. The currency is going to be brief, but the reliability and authority, you want to have a longer explanation explaining why, like, why is the source reliable? Why is this person reliable? Whoever authored the information. And then what's the point of the information, right? So again, you're doing that twice. You're doing this whole CRAP test for each source. So go ahead and look at the sample. I have a student sample from a student of mine from a couple years ago, and he chose the one that was on minimum wage. Increasing the minimum wage will not reduce poverty. So this is a good example, this is not a perfect example. I've never seen a perfect assignment from a student because I don't think there is such a thing as a perfect assignment. Although there are some that are, extremely good that get A pluses. I think this one got something in the A plus range. This particular student, he was an overachiever in everything that he did. I'm pretty sure he, to my knowledge, went on to law school and planning to be an attorney and stuff like that. But anyways, he was just an overachiever. But a good example of this assignment. So you have the claim, and then the evidence, and then the CRAP test, right? And then another piece of evidence, the CRAP test. Another piece of evidence, the CRAP test. He did 3. You're not required to do 3. He just, like I said, he's an overachiever. But he just did 3. And then he wrote a section on warrants. Now, again, I've talked a lot about warrants in a lot of the videos, and a lot of students they grapple with like, well, what does a warrant mean? It means there's a logical relationship between the claim and the grounds. So he wrote this there, and I think he wrote it for his own benefit. It's almost like when you like say you have a conversation with someone and they don't talk back to you, but you're more like a sounding board. Hey, I want to talk to you about something. Oh, okay, yeah, I'll listen. And then I'm talking to the person for a while, and they don't say a thing. But after 20 minutes of talking, and I say, wow, thanks for listening. They're like, I didn't say anything. But it was just helpful for me to like talk through something to like remind myself that, okay, yeah, I have a correct understanding of the situation. And it was just nice to have someone as a sounding board. So I think that's why he did this. Potentially, that's why he did it. You don't have to. This is not a requirement, but it's also, nevertheless, it's a good exercise to ensure that you understand the nature of warrants and understand the nature of how your claim is logically connected to the grounds. So that's his, right? Not perfect, but it was quite good. I would say read through this to just give you an idea. Okay, let's go on to finding research. So at this point, I recommend that you pause the video and then, or go to the Cal State Fullerton website, pause the video, and then, or pause when you need to pause it. Basically, I'm going to walk you through the steps of how to find information on our Cal State Fullerton's website using the library databases. So why don't you go to the main page and you'll click on Quick Links. I highly recommend that you're using a laptop or desktop. This kind of stuff doesn't work as well with mobile devices like cell phones or tablets or whatever. So I highly recommend using a desktop or laptop. So you want to click on Quick Links. When you click Quick Links on my computer, that you get like another little drop down box, and then the Quick Links things comes up again. Click on Quick Links, and then you're going to go to Pollock Library. It's alphabetical, Pollock Library. Down here, Pollock Library. Now, if you're accessing this from home, at some point you'll probably have to log in with your credentials. If you're accessing this from our physical campus, then you probably don't, because you're on the network. You're on the system. So here's an easy way to do it, like a faster way. There are some faster ways of finding information, but this is a really easy way. Now you're on the main page, Pollock Library. You see it says databases, guides, books, media, get help, yada yada yada, and then you see the big thing. It says one search, and then there's a search box. Under search box, by the way, this is if you've never used the Pollock Library's databases, this will be your first opportunity. But it's in general, it's good. It's very good to be familiar with how to use our library's our university libraries databases and resources, because we have a ton. There's a ton of resources. There's all kinds of ways that you can get connected and get help with assignments, whether it's this assignment or other assignments that you have this semester or for the rest of your entire college career. I highly recommend that you reach out to the library when you're needing help with the whole process of research and finding information. As a reminder, in case you didn't know, most university librarians will have usually a master's degree. They have an MS degree, which is a Master of Science degree in library science. So one way to think about it is they have just tremendous expertise in helping people find information, specifically college students. All right, so go to OneSearch, and in the search box, you can just type in LA Times. Type in LA Times, and then hit enter. And then you'll see all kinds of results, right? 13 million results. So on the left-hand side where it says refine my results, yada, 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 it says available at CSUF. Click on where it says full text online, because I assume that you're going to be wanting to do this online. Click on full text online. And then on my end, yours should look just like mine. The very first thing on top is LA. It says Los Angeles Times online. So just click on that. It says available at Pollock Library, microfilm, online access, blah, blah, blah. So click on the thing that says online access. Has to load. Mine's asking me to sign in. I already signed in, but it's asking me to sign in again. I was signed in literally right before I started this video. But sometimes the library gets real persnickety about getting signed in and whatnot. Okay. I'm signed in. So, um, what you should see, so if you're following my direction step by step, now it says full text availability. It says 19th century U.S. newspapers, ProQuest, Global Stream, blah 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 blah. But that's it says available from January 1985 to December 1996. Obviously, you don't want that. This should be pretty intuitive. Some of you are like, yeah, I can figure it out, but for some of you, this is completely new stuff. So that's why I'm giving you detailed instructions. What I recommend is go to the thing that says either ProQuest Global News Stream. It says available from 1996. That's going to be it's a much broader search. But the one that's below that says available global news stream available from February 2017. So that's almost 5 years. It's more than enough coverage, right, for whatever your topic is. So you click on that. And then you can just it says search within this publication. And now you're this is like a good way to do research. This is much better than just going on Google, because oftentimes with Google, you don't really know what you're getting when you're getting a website. And this assignment is all about finding good evidence that you can trust. So think about the whole garbage in, garbage out analogy. If you're not finding good information, then you're not outputting good information. So search within this publication, and I'm going to type in agriculture causes deforestation, because that's one of let's say you chose that one, is agriculture a major cause of deforestation, a leading cause of deforestation. So just type that in. You got to get creative with your search terms. So agriculture causes deforestation. Maybe you just type in agriculture and deforestation, or deforestation from agriculture. You sometimes have to get creative with your search terms. Or if you click on advanced search, you might have different luck there. So I just clicked on that. And then the first one I got, let's see, there were a total of 5. So five hits. School kids are drawn into battle over palm oil and the environment. And then even without even opening this, it says ... oil after staging a play that claimed it causes deforestation. Deforestation and climate change. So the whole article seems to be talking about that. So that's one I would look up. Here's some things to know about extreme drought in the western U.S., deforestation, agriculture. So these look like they're pretty relevant, right? So what I would do, I would open up these articles, look through them, and if you think like, yeah, this is what I need, right? This is what I need to support my claim. There you go. Your research is done. Now you just got to read through it and then obviously complete the assignment. So that was just one topic using one source, LA Times. Maybe you didn't find anything in LA Times. Well, go back to the search box and then try Orange County Register, or New York Times, or Washington Post, Chicago Tribune. Those are some of the biggest ones in the nation. I'm not a huge newspaper reader, so I'm not too familiar with all the other types, but that's where I would start. I would start using these online library databases. Another option is to use Google Scholar, which is scholar.google.com. And if some of you have used that before, but anytime I mention this in class or with students, when I ask, have you heard of it, usually it's kind of like 60, 40, 70, 30. Like there's usually less people who have heard of it or use it. So if you go into Google, you can do this on your own if you want, but if you go into Google and you type in agriculture causes deforestation, maybe you get 10 million hits. But if you go to scholar.google.com, which is Google Scholar, it's one of their apps, been around for a long time, type in the same thing. Now instead of getting 10 million hits, maybe you get 10,000, right? So it's narrowing the search. You have a much more strategic search. So instead of opening up, instead of like Google searching the entire World Wide Web, they're just searching sources that are scholarly sources. Doesn't mean you're going to get great information, but it's a much more strategic approach, and generally you get much better information when you do it that way. So that is that. Very detailed overview of what you need to do. So hopefully you've been taking notes on this, so you know what to look for. Obviously, you can listen to this video again, as I mentioned in all the other videos. I recommend listening to these videos at a higher playback speed. It just saves time. You can try it out, 1.5 or 1.75 or 2.0, And I hopefully I speak clear enough such that if you're playing this at 2.0, you might still be able to understand me. But I might be a really fast talker at 2.0, twice the speed, but nevertheless, try it out. So that's what you're doing, right? So you're going to have your claim, your evidence, crap test. Of course, you include your sources. Um, and then at the end of everything, right, where it says that very last sentence in your whole assignment says, therefore, it is evident that Volkswagen circumvented air pollution standards. After that, guess what you need to do? Hopefully you guessed correctly. Include your evidence. Include, copies of your evidence. So if it's the LA Times article, just include the entire article. The entire, whatever it is, 4 or 5 page article. Like I said, if it's a 30-page article, then you can include it if you want. It's just a lot of extra text. It's a very large document. So just either the first or second page, first and or second page, and then the place where you got your information. Or in most cases, students are just including the entire article. If it's a book chapter, if you have something that's not digital, well then scan it into your computer, figure it out, and then include the appropriate information. So make sure you include that in your final submission. What some students have done for this assignment on Canvas is they just create 2 documents. One document is their factual argument assignment, and then the other document is copy of the evidence. And I think I found more students doing that in the last couple semesters that I've been teaching this online. I think it might just make it less confusing. I don't really know, but it doesn't really matter to me. So you can have 2 submissions on Canvas. I've had some students tell me for another assignment that they were having trouble with submitting 2 things. Like, to my knowledge, I thought you could submit 2 documents within the same submission. But if you can't, you can have 2 submissions. Because the way I set it up on this is unlimited submissions. So yeah, anyways, you might have 1 submission, that's the assignment, the factual argument assignment, and the second submission, that's the evidence. Or just include it all into one continuous document. Doesn't matter to me, as long as I get both of them. I think that's it. Hope you're all doing well. Talk to you later. Bye.